Hey guys, what's going on? It's Drew here. Today, in this video, what we're going to be taking a look at is the time-worn Spire pulse rifle from the Iron Banner. Of course, the Iron Banner is here once again, and this time, I've given a little more time to using the time-worn Spire. Since I've started using it more often, it's quickly become one of my go-to weapons, and probably my absolute go-to legendary pulse rifle. So I know a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, what exactly is the point of using pulse rifles right now? Where do pulse rifles fit in Destiny 2? And to me right now, even with weapons like hand cannons being strong, especially with mouse and keyboard, and auto rifles being especially strong in controller, I think pulse rifles have a unique role of being a weapon that is more versatile. I almost like to think of pulse rifles in Destiny 2 as this halfway point between an auto rifle and a hand cannon. A hand cannon's benefit is it deals a lot of damage per shot. You don't have to expose yourself. You can deal instant good chunks of damage to a target with each shot of a hand cannon. And in an auto rifle, you have a weapon that can work at a variety of different ranges, but you need to have that target exposed for a pretty good amount of time because each shot doesn't do a significant amount of damage. With hand cannons, with the more forgiving archetypes at least, not the high impact ones, you're going to be getting a 1.2 to 1.3 optimal time to kill, whereas with the auto rifles, 450 RPMs being the most popular right now, you can get a 1.07 optimal time to kill. What's nice about pulse rifles is they sit somewhere between that 1.07 to 1.3 mark at 1.13 to 1.2. And this specific pulse rifle gets the better end of that. It gets the 1.13 optimal time to kill, which is really nice. So pulse rifles get this versatility like auto rifles where they can be used in some more extended ranges. They dominate in the mid-range, and even at some more extended ranges do perform better than that of an auto rifle. What's great though is they get that ability, somewhat like a hand cannon, to deal a good amount of damage per burst. So you can deal good amounts of damage in a relatively short window of time. So although unpopular, I do think pulse rifles have a place, and that's my opinion of where they do fit into the puzzle and what they're good at. So now that we've spent a few minutes and got that out of the way, let's talk about why this specific pulse rifle does particularly well in the Crucible and why I like it so much. Firstly, as always, let's start with the Archetype. So this is a rapid fire frame pulse rifle, meaning it's going to have 540 RPM, so 540 rounds per minute, and 23 impact to go along with it. It's got a 1.13 second optimal time to kill, taking 4 bursts, that's 9 critical shots and 3 body shots, and it's got a 1.67 second base time to kill, taking 5.33 bursts, so just shy of 6 full bursts, which is in total 16 body shots. It deals 18 damage to the head and 13 damage to the body. Moving on to our perks, we'll start by talking about our weapon sights, and first we have the Hintmark IS sights, which is a short zoom sight with greatly increased handling and slightly increased range. Next we have the red dot micro sights, which are short zoom sights with increased range and handling. And finally we have the rifle scope SSF, which is a long zoom sight with slightly increased range but slightly decreased handling. Although this pulse didn't feel too clunky in my opinion, the handling is somewhat mediocre, and for that reason, if you do find it to feel a bit heavy, the Hintmark IS sights provide a good increase to handling while still giving you somewhat of a benefit to range. That being said, I found that the red dot micro sights was the best overall sight to be using, still granting good handling increase, not as significant as the Hintmark sights, but still a good increase, but more importantly increasing range more significantly by 9 from the 33 base stat to 42. Range being, in my opinion, a bit more of an important stat in this case than handling, and the sights are still short zoom, so overall they're just great sights to be using and were my choice. The rifle scope for me was too clunky and wasn't versatile enough in medium or close range. I felt like I was really sacrificing some of the usability of this weapon when using it. Of course, you can actually hipfire this weapon. It has some pretty decent hipfire, especially with mouse and keyboard. So technically you can just hipfire this weapon in close range and just use the sights to give you better performance at longer ranges, but the range benefit didn't really feel great enough for me to warrant using the rifle scope over the red dot micro sights. In our first set of perks, we have the Tactical Mag perk and Accurized Rounds. Tactical Mag will increase your reload speed, slightly increase stability, and add 1 extra burst in the magazine. With Accurized Rounds, you'll get a pretty good increase to range on the weapon. I found both of these perks to be relatively viable. With Tactical Mag, stability is increased to 59 from 54, and since there's no range benefit, it's going to stay at 42 with that red dot micro sights I suggested equipped. Now, although the slight stability boost is nice and always welcome, I don't think that this is the most beneficial point of this perk on this weapon. I found that this pulse rifle has a relatively long reload speed. I think it might be one of the worst of all the pulse rifles, which at times just naturally made it feel quite slow. So the increased reload from Tactical Mag actually really helps us, in addition to that extra burst that adds to the mag so you don't have to reload as often. Typically though, I do prefer to use accurized rounds, even though Tactical Mag does give you some benefits, just because it helps maintain damage at range more effectively, and of course, since the stat is kind of tied to range, in turn it's going to also get better target acquisition, at least at longer ranges. With accurized rounds and red dot micro equipped, this weapon gets a 50 range stat, which is pretty competitive and good compared to some other pulses. Compared to that of the Nightshade, with no armor piercing rounds, it has a stat of 48 range, so this is actually better. And with armor piercing rounds, the Nightshade gets 52 range, which is barely higher than that of the Time Worn Spire with these range boosts. Compared to that of the Lincoln Green, another fast firing pulse rifle, and with it having equipped the medium zoom sights and maximum range perks, it gets a 40 range stat, which is still less than that of the Time Worn Spire with a short zoom scope and 50 range. So my hesitation to using this archetype of rapid fire pulses was always just maintaining damage and effectiveness at range, and this weapon, especially with accurized rounds, seems to do this quite well, even compared to some of the pulses in the other archetypes. We'll share a few more comments about range a little later in the video, but overall, I think accurized rounds is my go-to perk for this weapon to really give it more versatility and consistency at range. But if you really don't like the reload speed of it, then feel free to go with Tactical Mag. It's definitely not a wasted perk. The last perk we have available on the weapon is Zen Moment, and this perk was a little bit disappointing to me. When testing it against the Cabal at the beginning of the raid, I did try and land bursts with some regular decent recoil compensation as I normally would, and tried to analyze the pattern of each of the bursts, if the burst was getting tighter, if recoil direction was getting better, and it only seemed to kick in from what I could tell after landing 3 to 4 bursts. At least I only noticed a really noticeable difference after that many bursts. I want to say after the first burst I saw somewhat of a difference. I saw a little bit of a tighter spread, but again nothing extremely noticeable. After the 3rd or 4th burst, I believe, I did see a more significant difference though. But again, overall, the benefit of this perk was a little underwhelming. I kind of wanted it to be a little more beneficial. I tried it with both no counterbalance mods and with 2 counterbalance mods, and it didn't seem like it was really boosting the overall recoil direction either. It was just making the spread a little tighter, but again, not as noticeably as I would have liked to have seen. As much as there are better perks available that could have landed on this weapon, this perk definitely isn't one of the worst either, because it does serve a purpose, and any bit of stability increase on a rapid fire pulse is definitely welcome to improve that consistency of it. Now let's take a look at the stats quickly on the weapon, and these stats are reflective of using red dot micro and accurized rounds. The weapon has a 50 range stat, 33 base range, but 50 with the perks equipped that I suggested, and 79 target acquisition. It has 54 stability and 60 recoil direction, 37 reload speed, 40 handling, and 36 bullets in the mag. We've already talked quite a bit about the range of this weapon. It's one of the main reasons to be using it in my opinion. 50 range is very competitive with other pulses and other archetypes, and the best in its own archetype. But to go on and add on to that, this weapon has 79 target acquisition. This is a stat that's directly tied to range, and 79 target acquisition is the best overall for any pulse rifle. So a great range stat helps maintain an amazing target acquisition stat, and when you combine that with a weapon that has a really good time to kill, best for a pulse rifle, and is the more forgiving archetype, well, you have a pretty reliable lethal weapon. That's not even to say that it has bad stability. 54 stability is not the best, but pretty competitive with a lot of other pulse rifles. The 60 recoil direction isn't the best, but apparently is on par with others in the archetype, and even the Nightshade, which to me, the Nightshade has a noticeably better recoil pattern, so I'm a little confused by that. Overall, to me, the recoil pattern, though, felt pretty inconsistent on this weapon, albeit a little better than the Lincoln Green, and this could be because of the better stability in some cases, and Zen Moment maybe, but I would definitely strongly recommend using at least one counterbalance mod with this weapon to make it a lot more consistent and easier to use. Otherwise, we have a 37 reload speed and 40 handling. We talked about the reload speed being noticeably slow and heavy, so if you have a kinetic munition loader, this would definitely be the time to use it if you'd like, or if you'd rather go with Tactical Mag to not take up a mod instead of accurized rounds, you can definitely do that as well. 40 handling, which we've talked about, really isn't bad. It sounds low, but honestly, I've didn't really notice it at all, and this weapon still felt good to use. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review of this weapon and why I think it's one of the best pulses and definitely has a reason to be used. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the weapon and engage in a discussion as always, so definitely put your thoughts in the comments down below. Before we end this video, I just want to say, guys, for those of you that have watched up until this point, you guys are the real MVPs. But I'm so sorry for not having uploaded a video this week yet. I've been taking on a lot of new things this past week or week and a half, and I'm definitely a lot busier than usual. So as a result, I'm just getting into a new schedule, and the regular uploads are going to be coming as always. It'll be, as always, about 2, maybe 3 meaty uploads per week, so 10 to 15 minute uploads, whether that be weapon reviews and analysis, etc. So that is what we'll be having going forward. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, watching the video, of course. Hope you enjoyed. As always, it's been Drew here today, and I'll catch you guys later.